We gather this morning to commemorate Yom Hashoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. There is so much, so many things, so many lives to remember. Those who perished, those who survived. It is more than is humanly possible for any one person to remember. But we try. Less than 2 weeks ago, we fulfilled the obligation of the Gad Levincha, the mitzvah to transmit the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of our redemption from Egypt and the formation of the Jewish people. And today, just a short time after, it is our obligation to fulfill a very different type of transmission. I am a child of a Holocaust survivor. My father, Zichrono Livracha, born in Lodz, was in the Lodz ghetto for 5 years, from the day it opened until the day it closed, before being transported to Auschwitz and to Dachau. I've always considered it a privilege to be raised in the home of a survivor. It is most certainly a dubious privilege. It was a privilege nonetheless. My connection to Jewish life in Eastern Europe ran deep. It was in the blood of our family. My life was shaped by stories which celebrated Jewish life before the Shoah, communicated the horrors of the war, and inspired admiration through stories of survival. My father was very committed to the mitzvah v'Gad Levincha, both the celebratory transmission of the Seder and the painful transmission of this day of Yom HaShoah. And now, in this day, in this generation, the obligation is ours. We must hear the stories. We must remember the stories. And we must transmit stories to the next generation. That mission, that responsibility must guide us, each and every one of us, throughout the day today. In a few minutes, we'll have the opportunity to hear the remarkable story of two brothers. We'll hear the stories of two men who are very close to our community, to our SAR community, who survived the Shoah and join us today for that act of transmission, to hand over to us their stories. We must care for these and all the stories that we hear, to hold on to them, protect them, and to share them with others. Over the course of the day, as you know, each hour we are reading names of members of our own SAR families who perished during the Shoah. And later today, we will learn about people who now, in the 21st century, seek to deny that the Shoah ever happened. It still shocks me that there are such people, but we need to know that they exist so that we can fight against it. On this day, these memories, they are in our hands. They are our responsibility. They are in our care. Before we continue with the program, since it is 11 o'clock, I'm going to ask each of you to stand. We should stand together as we recite the names of some of our members of our community who perished during the Shoah. Please rise. From the Fishman family, Yerachmiel Etkes, Razel Chaim Etkes, Herschel Etkes, Perel Etkes, Asher Etkes, Rivka Etkes, Chava Etkes, all from Poland. From the Fogel family, Sasya ben Yaakov Tzvi ben Menachem, age 13, Meir ben Menachem, age 11, Pesel bas Tzvi, Ita bas Menachem, Shimi ben Naftali, Malka bas Naftali, Itya bas Naftali, ages 8 and 6, from Czechoslovakia. From the Frank family, Rachel Shaibovich, Rachel Gutman. From the Fried family, Azriel Kutter, Rachel Goldfarb, Dvorah Kutter, Yossel Kutter, Bracha Kutter Zimbler, Herschel Zimbler, Bela Zimbler, Cyril Kutter. From the Friedman family, Shlomo Baruch Friedman, Esther Friedman, Chaim Friedman. From the Gabay family, Chaya Kaswin, Fisher Kosvin, Bunya Kosvin, Esther Kosvin from the Ukraine. From the Garbuz family, Sophie Redlich, Regina Freiman, Gertrude Freiman, Laser Garbuz. From the Gittig family, Zalman Rakover, Helena Rakover, Joseph Grunberg from Poland and from Germany. From the Gotel family, Yosef Tzvi ben Yaakov Pesach, who perished in the Warsaw Ghetto. From the Greenberg family, Esther Kornfeld and family, Velvel Kaufman. From the Gross family, Joseph Weiss, Ratza Hendel Gross. Yehi Zichram Baruch. You may be seated.
Each year, we ask students and faculty members to light a candle in memory of a family member who perished in the Shoah. We will be lighting from a candelabra made and donated to SAR High School by Milton O-Ring, a Holocaust survivor whose granddaughter is an SAR High School graduate. O-Ring described the meaning behind his candelabra as follows. It is made of stainless steel and the candle cups are brass. The candelabra has a Jewish star at its base in the design of armbands that residents of the Warsaw Ghetto had to wear. There are 6 vertical posts. There's a Christian cross for the evil role of Christianity through the ages, although there were many Catholic, Polish, righteous Gentiles. A model of the typical concrete post that surrounded Auschwitz. Electrified wires were attached to these posts to prevent escape. Third, a crematorium furnace with 2 doors. Fourth, a post on which hangings were performed. Fifth, 1/2 of the lightning bolt symbol that Nazi SS members wore. And sixth, an arm raised in defiance. Except for the last digit, the number engraved on the arm was Elie Wiesel's. Wiesel was alive at the time the piece was created. I will now call up the students and faculty members to light candles. From the 9th grade, I call upon Talia Aronoff.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of my maternal great-grandfather's family, including his parents, Simcha Bunim and Hinda Belfer, 4 sisters, Lima, Mindel, Shendel, and Chaya, wife Esther, and small child David, all who perished in the Holocaust. They were from a small town in Poland named Wrocław, which is near Krakow. The family worked in the feather business until the war. During the war, many family members were killed in various concentration camps.
From the 12th grade, I call upon Galia Atik to light the candle.
Okay. I'm lighting this candle in memory of my great-grandparents, Sarah Rachel Bat Moshe and Yitzchak Ben Pinchas Shalom, who perished in the Shoah.
I now call upon Bella Adler to light the next candle.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of my great-great-aunt, Sarah Waltuck Weiss, her husband, and her baby child, Daniel, who perished in the Shoah.
From the 10th grade, I invite Sam Krasner to light the next candle.
I am lighting this candle in memory of my great aunts and uncles, Adolf Aaron, Bruno Aaron, Eva Aaron, Gunther Aaron, Isla Aaron, Isaac Aaron, Kathy Aaron, Lucy Aaron, Norbert Aaron, Ulrich Aaron, who all perished in the Shoah.
Representing the faculty, I call upon Ms. Shira Shiowitz to light the next candle.
4 years ago, I lit a candle in memory of my great-grandfather, Today I light a candle in memory of my great-grandmother, Sarah Bat Menachem Mendel Vayita, who was killed immediately upon arrival in Auschwitz on Bet Sivan, 1944. Yehi Zichra Baruch.
Representing the juniors, I call upon Amitai Naimanlicht.
Since I'm not in school, this candle will be lit in memory of Kurt Meyerhoff, my great-grandfather's brother, and Sarah Frankel, my great-grandmother's sister who perished in the Shoah.
I would now like to call upon Akiva Schanzer to introduce the next part of our program.
Thank you all for joining today. I am very proud to introduce my grandfather, Dr. Bernard Schanzer, and his twin brother, my great-uncle, Henry Schanzer. And let me tell you, they are truly grand and great. In fact, they are my heroes and people I try to emulate. As some of my friends know, I love my grandfather so much that his portrait is a screensaver on my phone. They will be sharing with you their Holocaust experience. However, before they do, I just want to share with you one idea that might come across during their presentation, but that I've had the pleasure of experiencing my entire life. In addition to learning the important lessons from their story, I hope you also get a glimpse into the gift they have given me over the last 16 years in serving as role models. Their joyful approach to life and their generosity towards others, not to mention the remarkable relationship they share, are all examples of how to do it right. Before I hand it off, please note, if you have any questions, you should submit them to Rabbi Hartstark using Zoom chat. And with that, I give you my heroes. Dr. Bernard Schanzer, also known as Pepe, and Henry Schanzer, also known as Pop-Pop. Pepe and Pop-Pop, take it away.
Kivi, thank you so very much.
I love you guys. I love you.
You may love me, but I love you more. But I want to thank you for inviting us again to share in the Day of Remembrance of the Shoah. As you've heard it to us before, but this new class has not, we've told our story to our children and our grandchildren. And with your permission today, we would like to include all of you into our family and share our story. Our story is a story of terror and survival told from a child's perspective. We were 7 years old when we were impacted by the Shoah. We testify as to a crime committed against our family and against humanity. However, we should never forget that it was a crime primarily against the Jews. The intent of the Nazis' final solution was to kill every Jew, irrespective of age, gender, religious affiliation, or status. On August 26, 1942, our father, Bruno Schanzer, was caught in a roundup of Jews in Saint-Étienne, France, and deported to Drancy, a French detention camp outside of Paris. From there to an extermination camp. As listed in
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a previous, this one before that.
Mhm.
The-
I'm gonna go back to it.
As noted in Klotzfeld's documentation, my father was on convoy 27 This was a convoy which consisted of cattle cars, and it went out from Drancy to Auschwitz on September the 2nd, 1942. On that convoy, there were 1,016 people. At liberation, only 30 had survived. Unfortunately, my father was not among them. If you look at this list, you see my father's name, and below that, you will see the name of two children, Henri and Elise Ulizalka. They were 5 and 9, alone, without parents, destined to be murdered. From France, 75,721 Jews, of which there were 11,000 children, deported to concentration camps during the Shoah. Only 2,566 survived. How did we survive? My twin brother and I, my sister and cousin. We were hidden children. We owe our survival to righteous Gentiles of blessed memory and a most resourceful mother. These righteous Gentiles are named Jeanne Bonhomme, whom we called Tatan Jeannot or Aunt Jane, her mother, Adolphine Dorel, whom we called Mémé or Grandma. Recently, we've added the Marquis and Marquise de Villiers. Our story is not complete if these righteous are not remembered and praised. To put our story and that of our family in perspective, note that our mother, Bella, was born in Poland, and our father, Bruno, was born in Czechoslovakia. Our mother came from a very traditional Hasidic background. Our father came from a more liberal background. Our mother's mother, Shorot Vora, had 6 children. Our father's mother, Charlotte, had my mother and another son, Charlotte. Tragically, as we will tell you, my father and his brother, as well as 2 of my mother's siblings, were murdered by the Germans. Ironically, my father's father, Bernard Schanzer, after whom my brother Bernard is named, was killed in World War I, fighting for the Austrians, then allied with the Germans. Our parents immigrated to Belgium in the early 1930s, where they met. They were married in 1932, and we show you a copy of their marriage certificate to establish the fact that we are legitimate. My sister Anna was born in 1934, and my brother and I were born in 1935. We lived in Liège, Belgium, which is north of France. Look at this photo taken of our family in 1936 when we were just about a year old. On this picture, you can see my father on the left, my mother on the right, our sister in the middle, Bernie and I in the center. We do not know which one is which. My parents, for good reason, since they could not tell us apart, put white shoes on one. Focus on the picture, look at the bottom. One is wearing white shoes, the other one is wearing black shoes. The problem is they forgot whether they put the white shoes on Bernie or on Henry, so we still don't know who is which. On the next picture, this is taken in 1939. We're just about 4 years old, and here that's obviously my sister in the middle, Bernie and I on either side. on this picture, we still don't know which one is which, but I'm sure that if you focus, you can see that the better looking one is me. We show you these pictures so that you can determine that the two old men that you are seeing on the screen once were really very cute, and you can understand why our mother loved us. But we also show you these pictures to underscore the cruelty and inhumanity of the Nazis and their helpers who planned to kill such innocent and angelic children. Our ordeal began when the Germans invaded Belgium in May 10, 1940, and this is a banner copy of the banner headline of the New York Times of that day. Within a few days, 15 members of our extended family crammed into a small van, and we fled ahead of the advancing Germans towards France. My first experience with the horrors of war occurred as we were fleeing toward the French border. German planes began to strafe our convoy and the town we were approaching. Those of us who were able to do so jumped out of the van and took cover on the side of the road. As the planes flew by, we saw cars, buildings, and people being blown up into the air. After the bombing, we continued our travels to the south of France, just ahead of the Germans who overran Belgium and northern France with ease. We traveled all the way south and then proceeded northeast to make our way to the city of Saint-Étienne. And we settled there in the late summer of 1940. From the fall of 1940 until the summer of 1942, I have no recollection of our children's world being threatened. We even managed to go on a family vacation in the summer of 1941 to the French countryside. We were then 6 years old. See the picture of the three of us, the three smiling children. But I want you to focus on this picture and look on the left-hand side and see who grabbed the long-sleeved shirt, the good belt. You can't really tell, but he's wearing the good belt and the good sandals, and left me with the short-sleeved shirt, the lousy belt, and the holy sneakers. As to our family's involvement in things Jewish, I will tell you one story. Shortly after we settled in Saint-Étienne, my parents hired a Hebrew teacher to try to teach us some Hebrew. However, we took an instant dislike to him, and as he was leaving our apartment building, we went out on the balcony overlooking the street and pelted him with wet paper towels. That was the end of our Hebrew lessons. But our father, who was a strict disciplinarian, administered a different lesson to our little behinds. Unfortunately, any degree of normalcy came to an abrupt end in the summer of 1942.
No. Go to the next slide.
No, not that next slide.
No.
Saint-Étienne was in Vichy France, and although Vichy France was not under immediate German control,
Okay.
the French government and police participated actively, willingly, and intensely in the arrest and deportation of Jews. To their shame, the French did not officially acknowledge their role in aiding the Nazis until 1995. In mid-July of 1942, my parents had sent Brittany and me to a summer camp. We came home from camp in early August to find the atmosphere tense and supercharged. There was a palpable sense of gloom and doom. Years later, we learned from our mother that many stories were circulating about German atrocities. Our father, who had been educated in Germany, did not believe that the so-called civilized Germans could possibly behave in the manner being reported. Our mother, who had been raised in Poland and subjected to virulent anti-Semitism from her earliest days, feared the worst. Unfortunately, our parents and the other members of the extended family opted to stay in Saint-Étienne. In mid-August 1942, a few days after our return from summer camp, our parents told us that they would be sending us to stay with a Gentile acquaintance of our father's who had agreed to board us. Our sister was going to go to a boarding school in Lyon. Etched in my memory is that bright, hot summer day when Papa was walking with us to the bus depot. He was carrying our suitcases. We were holding on to him and the suitcases, trying to be big boys and help out. We got to the bus station. We sat down on a bench and waited. Papa told us again that we should be on our best behavior and to act like big boys. Then he took each one on a knee and he hugged us. And suddenly he started shaking. He was sobbing. We were shaking. Our father was crying. Our father had never shown much emotion, especially in public. The bus pulled up. He quickly composed himself. We looked out of the window and we saw our father, who was then 39 years old. We were 7.5. We would never see him again, and he would never see us again. After a short ride, we arrived at our destination. Neither Henry or I can remember the name of the person who was supposed to take care of us. We have dubbed them Monsieur et Madame Chrétien. A few days later, our mother came to visit. She spent the day with us. It was a delight. At the end of the visit, we walked her to the bus depot. At the depot, there was a French policeman who was going from person to person, asking to see their identity papers. The policeman asked my mother for her papers. He looked on a notepad and he told her that she was under arrest and that he was going to accompany her to Saint-Étienne. Mother assured him that she had done nothing wrong and she would go directly to the police station in Saint-Étienne and clear up the matter. And that there was no need to accompany her. There was an appropriate exchange of money. Our mother was a very strong believer in the power of the purse. So the officer allowed her to board the bus by herself. Needless to say that our clever mother did not surrender herself into the arms of the police. Rather, she got off a few stops before the terminal in Saint-Étienne, walked to our apartment, and at that point, the apartment had already been seized. On that fateful day, August 26, 1942, she learned that all the members of our family who had been in Saint-Étienne had been arrested. Those arrested included my father Bruno, his brother Max, our uncle Boris Ein, our 7-year-old cousin Jack, and his parents Boris and Frida Ein. Except for my cousin Jack, who was subsequently rescued by a French cardinal le Cardinal Gerlier. They were all deported to concentration camps where they were ultimately murdered. After leaving our mother at the bus depot, we returned to the home of the Chrétien, and we told Monsieur Chrétien about our mother's encounter with the police officer. Our welcome, which originally had been cordial, quickly changed to distant and cold. We later learned that Monsieur Chrétien had gone to see Dr. Fargier. Dr. Fargier was our family doctor in Saint-Étienne, and he was the one who was going to let out money to pay for our care to the Chrétien. The Chrétien asked for more money in view of the increased risk. Dr. Fargier said that he would be very happy to give him more money, but he could do so only with the consent of the Schanzers. Now, my father had been arrested and deported, and my mother was in hiding. The Chrétien became very unhappy. Several days later, Monsieur Chrétien told us to pack our things. We were going on a trip. Our suitcases in hand, we trudged along to the bus depot. When the bus arrived, we saw that the destination said Saint-Étienne. And I thought, great, we are going home. We're going to see Papa and Mama. But why didn't Monsieur Chrétien tell us that we were going home? When we arrived at the terminal de Saint-Étienne, Monsieur Chrétien walked us to the police station and turned us to the police. As he turned to leave from the police station, Monsieur Chrétien turned to us and he said, "They will take very good care of you here." In the police station, like little criminals, we were questioned about our mother's whereabouts and about her friends. Fortunately, we knew nothing and could tell them nothing. After the interrogation, a police officer told us that we would be going to an orphanage, until our mother would turn up. In sum, we were being held as hostages by the police in order to get our mother to turn herself in. We had been betrayed, deserted, abandoned.
The orphanage to which we were brought was a Catholic orphanage run by kindly nuns who promised us that if we were good, we could become priests. We never made it. The orphanage was across the street from a church to which we were marched daily and twice on Sundays for prayers. As part of our new identity, we were also given a rosary to be used during our prayers. For those of you who I'm sure do not know what a rosary is, it is a set of beads which is used by Catholics when saying certain prayers. I don't know where my brother and I got the idea and or the courage to rebel, but when everybody would kneel on two knees, we would cheat and only kneel on one knee at a time. Also, when everyone else was carefully counting the rosary, we purposely skipped beads and we would mutter under our breath, "God save us, destroy them, God save us, destroy them." As an aside, having a twin brother provides you with a natural and uncritical ally and allows you to do many outrageous things which single individuals did not do. We had been in the orphanage for about 2 months when we experienced what Bernie likes to call the Great Escape. One morning, as we were crossing the street from the orphanage to the church, 2 men approached us and said, "We have a message from your mother. Tomorrow, stay at the end of the line." The mention of our mother must have done the trick. I have no recollection of questioning the message or the messenger. The next morning, we stayed at the back of the line. As we crossed the street from the orphanage to the church, the two men from the day before appeared, took our hands, and calmly walked away with us. We expected to hear someone yelling for us to come back, but there was no outcry. Somehow, we just walked away. It turns out the two men had acted in response to a request from our mother. They were members of Lozé, a semi-clandestine Jewish organization which helped Jewish children and which was still operating at that time in Vichy, France. To this day, we don't know how my mother had learned where we were and how our escape was so well engineered. The two men took us for a short train ride and placed us on a farm. However, the farmer did not treat us well. We were malnourished and we became very, very sick. We were on this farm a few months when someone from Lozé came and saw our emaciated condition and proceeded to remove us from the farm and place us in an orphanage in Grenoble, which is in the French Alps. However, Lozé refused to tell our mother our new location for fear that she might come to visit us and or give away our hiding place if she were arrested and questioned. At this point, let me go back and tell you what had happened to and with my mother. After her narrow escape and her return to Saint-Étienne, my mother first went into hiding with a couple named Les Parets who were working with the French resistance. Unfortunately, the Parets were betrayed by their own son, and my mother barely escaped getting caught when she came on the scene as the Parets were being arrested. She then hid in a convent, but had to leave the convent when it was threatened to be searched by the Germans. After leaving the convent in the spring of 1943, my mother was walking along the streets of Saint-Étienne with no safe place to go. She was at her wit's end. As she was walking, my mother miraculously ran into Madame Jeanne Bonhomme, who owned a dress shop in Saint-Étienne. My mother had bought clothing from Madame Bonhomme for herself and for my sister in the previous 2 years, and they had formed a very good relationship. When Madame Bonhomme saw my mother, she asked my mother, who must have been a total wreck, how come she looked so down and out. At the end of a rope, my mother told Madame Bonhomme all her troubles. Without a moment's hesitation, Madame Bonhomme, a recently widowed 30-year-old woman, courageously offered to help my mother. With total disregard for her own welfare, Madame Bonhomme came to the rescue. Madame Bonhomme managed to get my mother a false identity card and a false birth certificate. My mother, who was born in Greive, Poland, now became Marie l'Héritier. And this is a slide showing a false, a new identity. And she's now Marie l'Héritier, born in the town of Beaumont, Haute-Loire. And this is our mother's new birth certificate, attested to by her grandfather, François l'Héritier. Pause for an instant and consider the false birth certificate and identity card which Madame Bonhomme engineered to get for my mom. Bear in mind that Madame Bonhomme had to cajole or bribe a government official to get these documents. If Madame Bonhomme had been betrayed, this might have cost her her life. as well as the life of the official who subscribed to the documents. Madame Bonhomme also arranged for my mother to go to work in an honest-to-goodness castle for the Marquis and Marquise de Virieux, who worked with the French resistance. Shortly after my mother got to the castle, the boarding school where my sister Anna and her cousin Annie were staying was requisitioned by the Germans, putting the children at risk. My mother informed the Marquis of the problem, and he arranged to have my sister and her cousin Annie brought to the castle. As part of taking our family under her wings, Madame Bonhomme negotiated with Rosé at my mother's urging to learn where we were. She came to get us in the orphanage in Grenoble, and in the late spring of 1943, she took us and placed us with her mother, Madame Dorel, who we learned to call Mémé, and with whom we forged a strong and affectionate relationship.
How to describe La Mémé? She was a wiry 65-year-old, spry young woman. She was wise and worldly. She had a little farm in Saint-Pal-de-Mont, which was a village in the isolated countryside. On the farm, there were goats, a few sheep, and one cow. There was no indoor plumbing. The first day we arrived, she asked us to weed the garden. In short order, we went out and pulled out everything that was green. Mémé came out and was devastated. We had ruined her garden. She looked at us crossly. We were sensitive 8-year-olds. We started crying. Mémé rapidly understood, and she made it up, and she treated us to hot chocolate. We became little farmers and gardeners. We took care of the sheep and goats. We learned to milk goats. And here you see us in our smocks and with our wooden shoes. And this would be our dress from 1943 to 1945. When using the outhouse at night in the dark, Henry and I would hold hands and overcome our fears. For our cover, Mémé told everyone that we were the children of a daughter who had married a Protestant, because even in the isolated rural countryside, you did not know who to trust and who not to trust. The cover also explained why we were unfamiliar with the church service, and it also allayed local suspicion why we attended the local public school, whereas almost everyone else attended Catholic school. And here you see in the center is Mémé, Henry and I. Between us is Riri, and on the left is Louisette, her daughter who was challenged. We have some wonderful stories to tell about La Mémé and on we became little farmers. I will share with you, however, 2 stories. My brother and I, before going to sleep, would recite the first 2 lines of Shema. We would cover our heads and would say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Leolam Vaed. We would say it once, we would say it twice, we would say it till we fell asleep. It was our mantra, it was our connection to our parents and family. After we had been with La Mémé for a few weeks, she said, I hear you mumbling at night before you go to sleep. What are you doing? We told her that we say a prayer. And she asked us, well, what does it mean? And we said, we don't know. But this magnanimous woman said, why don't you teach it to me and we will say it together? And at that point, you can see Henry and I holding La Mémé's hand and trying to teach this French woman some Hebrew words. And we kept on telling her, Mémé, répétez, Mémé, répétez, please repeat. Another marvelous story about La Mémé is that we attended a one-room schoolhouse. On a good day, there were at best 10 kids in the class. That included my brother and me, the two Jewish Protestants, and there was also one other Jewish child whose parents were hiding in the area. On one occasion, Henry talked out of turn. Our teacher, Madame Rochigneux, insisted on absolute decorum. She called Henry to a desk and gave him a slap. I thought his head was going to roll off. The next day, Mémé came to school with us and told Madame Rochigneux, On ne touche pas mes enfants. One does not touch my children. We are their guardian and a protector. We came to love this remarkable woman who was affectionate and treated us as her own. There are times when we were on the farm when we went to bed hungry at night, but if we went to bed hungry, so did she. Whatever she had, she shared. To our children and grandchildren, though she's not our biological grandmother, she's very much our grandmother. And to all of us, she is Mémé, grandma.
In August of 1943, after we had been with La Mémé for 4 months, she told us that Madame Bonhomme was going to be taking us to the castle where our mother was hidden for the rest of the summer vacation. For a week, we were literally floating on the air as we looked forward to the day when we're going to be reunited with our mother, whom we had not seen in a year. Although traveling involved substantial risks, Madame Bonhomme came to the farm and brought us to the castle, Le Château de Virieu. I recall arriving at the castle in late morning and hugging my mother and sister. You can imagine the joyous reunion. We had not seen our mother or sister in over a year. We were given a grand tour of the castle. It was an incredible sight. We even had a photo op, which you can see in front of you. And my mother is on the right-hand side looking at the photo, and Bernie and I are right in front of her, and my sister is in the center next to our cousin, and we had an aunt and a cousin also staying at the castle. We had just finished lunch when we were told that the Marquis had been denounced for working with the French resistance and for hiding Jews, and that the police were on their way to the castle. We were taken immediately to a nearby farm where we were hidden in a hayloft. We hid there all that evening and night. As it became dark, we shared the airspace with bats flying all over the hayloft. My mother had to use all the powers of persuasion to keep us children from crying out. The Marquis managed to escape and send a message to Madame Bonhomme and tell her where we were located. She arrived the next day and took Bernie and me back to her mother's farm. We had been with our mother for less than 24 hours. At the same time, Madame Bonhomme took my mother and our cousin to live with her in the back of her dress shop. Madame Bonhomme fabricated a cover that the two girls were her nieces whose fathers were prisoners of war and whose mothers had gone off to get work. Ironically, the dress shop was across the street from a Gestapo office building. My mother also managed to flee the castle. But now, armed with a false birth certificate and identity card, she managed to get work in a nursing home where she managed to survive a very frightful episode. The son of the owner was a captain in the French police. On a visit to the home, he detected my mother's foreign accent and in short order uncovered the false documents. He confronted her. Somehow, my mother managed to appeal to his basic human instincts and he let her stay with a comment, "I am still a human being." After we came back to La Mémé, we had one frightful escapade. And this occurred at the end of 1943. The family of the other Jewish child in our school was denounced to the authorities, and the police contingent came to the town to arrest them. The arrest took place when we were in school. Our teacher, Madame Rochigneux, the one who had hit me, but who evidently knew that we were Jewish, directed us to go home immediately to La Mémé's farm. As we were going down the road, La Mémé, who had also been alerted, was running towards us, crying and obviously frightened. She explained that there was a big problem and that we would be camping out with her in the woods that night. So we spent the night camping in the woods. In the morning, the police detachment had left and we returned to the farm. After that, we continued to live with La Mémé until the end of August 1945, when we were finally reunited with our mother, whom we had not seen in over a year.
In the summer of 1945, the war ended. We were reunited. My sister Anna, who had been hidden by Tatangiano since 1943 and had been thoroughly rehearsed with a cover that her father was a French prisoner of war. Our sister was 11 years old, believed the story as true. As French soldiers and prisoners of war were returning from the front and German camps, our sister Hannah would skip school and go every day to the railroad depot and await our father's return. He never did. After the war, my mother found also our cousin Jack, whose parents, Frida and Boris Shapiro, were murdered, and took him to live with us. In April of 1943, we arrived in the United States and settled on the Lower East Side. My mother was a 45-year-old widow in charge of her 3 children and her orphaned nephew. Somehow, against all odds, she overcame, she struggled and progressed. Our mother worked hard, overcoming many challenges. We went to high school, Rabbi Jacob Joseph, then to City College, which was essentially free. Henry received engineering degrees, then went to law school. I went to medical school. In 1966 through 68, I served in the United States Air Force in the medical corps. And when Henry was sworn in at the New York State Bar in 67, I came in my uniform, making it official. Our sister Anna went to Hunter College and became a French teacher. In 1980, our sister petitioned Yad Vashem, the Israel government official memorial to the Holocaust, to award Madame Bonhomme and her mother posthumously the Medal of Righteous Among the Nations. The medal quotes a saying in the Talmud, "He who saves one life saves a whole world." They were found worthy of the honor. Madame Bonhomme, who you see in the center holding the certificate of righteous, is surrounded in the back by Henry and me. On the left is my sister Anna. In front of her is Annie, our cousin. Between them is Nadine, Tatan Jeannot's grandniece. And in the back is Paul Kadar, the Israeli and of the Israeli consulate. Subsequently, there were plantings of a tree in Yad Vashem on the Avenue of the Righteous, and the trees there, and you can all visit and notice it.
The event, that is the award to Madame Bonhomme, was duly reported in the local press and in many Jewish periodicals, including the Jewish Floridian. And this leads us to our Uncle Ziggy story. The story of the award was read by Siegfried Gutter, an 86-year-old man living in North Miami Beach, who was a survivor of Auschwitz and Buchenwald, where his first wife had perished. When Siegfried read the story, he wrote a letter to the Israeli consul in New York, seeking to contact us. In Ziggy's words, after I read the article, I got very excited because of strong feeling that in this way I discovered the grandchildren of my late sister, Charlotte Schanzer. I am very excited about it because all my family perished, sisters, brothers, nieces, and nephews. I am the only survivor and would be happy to discover from my family somebody alive, even if only in the third generation. My late sister Charlotte perished in Krakow, from where I received her last letter addressed to me in the concentration camp Auschwitz. You would make an old sick man very happy. The Israeli consul contacted us and we set up a phone call with Siegfried. After exchanging hellos, he asked us, was your grandmother's name Charlotte? Indeed it was. And you can imagine the audible gasp in his voice when we told him so. He was exultant. We could hear him crying and laughing at the same time. Ziggy then wrote a second letter to the Israeli consul, thanking the consul for completing the connection. In Ziggy's words, which bear repeating, Mrs. Steinberg, that is my sister's married name, and her brothers contacted me by phone, and we had a very exciting four-way conversation. They are, in fact, my deceased sister's grandchildren. So after so many years, I had the pleasure to discover some blood relatives when I thought I was the only survivor of my family. As a thank you, my wife pledges to work even harder for the cause of our spiritual homeland, Medinat Israel. Needless to say, we immediately arranged to go with our then entire family to Florida to visit with Ziggy and his wife, Gisela, also a survivor of Auschwitz. In front of you, you see the pictures of me and my wife visiting with Ziggy and Gisela, my brother Bernie and his wife visiting with Ziggy, and my children, wife, and me visiting with Ziggy. Seeing us and getting together brought him great joy and happiness. To appreciate the significance to Ziggy of knowing that there were vibrant shoots, note the Gutter family tree he drew for us the first time we met. Consider the tragedy that this represents. Wilhelm murdered, Samuel murdered, Charlotte, our grandmother, murdered, Bruno, our father, murdered, Max, his brother, murdered, Henrietta, murdered, Helen, murdered, Siegfried, the only survivor, Oscar murdered, Fanny, Moritz, all murdered together with their entire family. As to the vibrant shoot from the family, look at the photo of a family that we're showing you, taken recently, 2015. Akiva is someplace in there. These are the descendants of Bruno and Bella. We present this to note that their spirit lives on and that our family and our people have risen from the ashes. Thank God we have children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Thank God also that our sister who made Aliyah in 1980 has grandchildren who have served in the IDF. This is a picture of Yonadav, one of my sister's grandson in his uniform. The attempt by the Nazis and their cohorts to destroy the Jewish people has not succeeded, although they have inflicted great harm to us. In our small way, we have shown up the Nazi Amalek. However, and if you go back and you note, we have labeled the slide of our family, the revenge. No.
Not here, but okay.
But how can you avenge the murder of 6 million beautiful and innocent lives?
In 2016, our grandson, Jesse Schanzer, who's a graduate of SAR, spent a year in a yeshiva in Israel, Eretz Hatzvi, and his yeshiva went on a program through Poland. I accompanied him. When we were in Medinek, we met up with another one of our granddaughters, Ilana Ratna, and even in this dismal place, we were able to smile. During that trip, we went from town to town in Poland where there had been Jewish, vibrant, active communities that all disappeared. All the synagogues now were museums. At one point, I turned to Jesse and I asked him, "Don't you think that the Germans won?" And my wise grandson, in his prophetic way, said, "But we are here. We are here." So some final thoughts. We are now in a pandemic. You will be marked by it forever, and it will be a subject of discussion. However, 82 years ago, there was another pandemic characterized by moral failure, moral turpitude, and indifference by humanity around us. It was secondary to baseless hatred with rapid viral anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, it remains endemic. To repeat the numbers again, in World War II, 74 million people died. 6 million Jews, 1.5 million innocent Jewish children, 2/3 of European Jewry. How do we ensure that anything like the Holocaust does not happen again? In the words of our uncle Siegfried, we must work ever harder for the cause of Medinat Yisrael, the democratic state of Israel. We must emulate Tatan Janot, La Mémé, the Marquis and the Marquise de Vieilleux, the Chassidei Oumot. Behave as they did and have the same moral compass. Do what is right and do it not only once, but do it every time that you are challenged. We must be proud of our heritage. You, our young people, our hope and our future. We have shared our story with you, and you are our hope and our ally. And you are charged to ensure that this does not happen again, to make sure that it does not happen again. I'd like to add just two thoughts to what Bernie said. On one hand, just so that we have a tradition with respect to the significance of names. And I just want you to appreciate, and certainly those of you who study French know that Madame Bonhomme, bon is good, homme is man, and she deservedly earned the name Bonhomme or Goodman. La Mémé, family name was Dorel, or in French, translated in English, is gold, and in fact, she was truly a golden individual. The second thought that I want to emphasize is that we, as a people, have been compared to the stars. And what Lubavitch, right up I saw, asked, why are the Jews compared to the stars? And the answer is, if you look at the stars, it's a little point of light all the way up in the sky, highly perceptible. But as we all know, if you move closer and closer to the stars, it becomes greater and greater and greater. Likewise, the Jewish people is small in number, but when you focus and start looking at the Jewish people, you see how great the Jewish people is and how great the individuals are. And this is something that we have to carry through our lives and recognize the greatness of what we are and our contributions to the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Schanzer and Mr. Schanzer, for sharing with us. It is really a sacred story that you have given to us, and your capacity and ability to share both about crimes and atrocities, and at the same time speak of courage and survival, and to do all of that with the spirit of humor that and optimism that penetrates your descriptions. It's really an inspiration. We're grateful to both of you for sharing with us. We would love to have time for lots of questions. I think maybe we'll just try for one, I think. One of the students posed, interested in your becoming, your professional lives, made a decision to become a doctor and a lawyer. And how, or was there an element of your own experiences personally that informed the decision that you made and the way that you carried out your professions over the course of your lifetimes here?
If you have a Jewish mother, she wants you to be either a doctor or a lawyer, and she can't make up her mind, so one has to be one or the other. She definitely did not want us to be rabbis.
But
Touche. Can't top that.
on a more
I was going to say, where was your mother when I needed her? But I, you know.
On a more serious level, one of the reasons I initially went to engineering school is the thought that engineering did not require language skills, and it enabled, if necessary, that we would be able to go to Israel and live there. So that was the initial consideration. The lawyer part I leave to my brother, but I want to let me add one.
You're the lawyer.
But when we finished high school, and as you can imagine, my mother was the sole provider for 4 children, and it must have been awfully hard. How was she going to feed us from one day to the next? And we were offered various jobs which would have paid off immediately, if not in the future. But I will never forget my mother insisting that we go to college and not take the easy route, even though it meant that she would have to work harder for so many more years. So it was and we all know, I think, that the Jewish mothers and indeed the Jewish women are the cause for our growth, and more than anything else, for our survival and remaining what we are.
Thank you. And I can't help but ask, I know we're late, but I wanted to ask one more question. One of the students asked why you chose to continue your observance, your commitment to Jewish practice after the Shoah, when you could have made different choices, and especially striking in terms of your description, very moving description of saying Shema, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuso, Olam Va'ed under those circumstances, and even teaching others. So why did you, what informed your kind of commitment to stay with Jewish life after experiencing that?
It's really a very difficult question. And we have struggled with this. And the question really comes when we are faced with the evil around the world. And sometimes we feel like, you take HaKadosh Baruch Hu by the beard and you hold him and you say, how can you let this happen? And this is really a fundamental question. We approached it in the realization, I think, that through our belief, at least I, and through Judaism, you have an answer. You try to bring a better world. There's evil out there, and it's going to be there. There's indifference, and you cannot, just as an aside, I hope I'm not rambling, but we say, remember what Amalek did. But beyond that, you also have to be active. You may not be indifferent. It said, Timcha Zecher Amalek. You have to erase the memory of Amalek. So you have to be active so that the evil is there. I think that we have the solution. I hope that we have the solution where we can really create a better world, where we can become, as Rabbi Sachs has put so beautifully, that we are a we, and we have to be concerned about others, about others. And we say, Kedoshim tiyu ki kod shani Hashem. You should be holy because I, God, am holy. So that we have to really try to imitate Hashem and try to improve the world. Our mission is really tikkun haolam. And I think that some people will have a different view, by the way. There are some people who say we have to find the answer elsewhere. But I think that in our tradition is the beautiful answer to care for the world.
Okay.
Henry?
I would like to interject that.
He has to have the last word. Go ahead.
No, I'd like to interject. And this, I blame my mother, but she really had a sense of the chain that started so many generations ago, and that we were the link. My mother remembered that her father, who died when she was 12, her ideal and her recollection was that he died learning a Gemara. But the point I'm making is that it's very difficult, but we have to bear in mind this link. And we just finished Pesach. We learned, unfortunately, that B'chol Dor Vador, and we're seeing it again with this Iran business. And I'm sorry, I just want to throw that in because we really have to do something about this attack on Israel that's coming. And but the point is, we are a link. We have to believe that, to some extent, we carry on a divine streak, a divine teaching, and we have to convey that to our children, and hopefully it will go on forever.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for sharing with us this morning. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to please rise. We are going to sound the memorial siren and a moment of silence. Please rise. Please remain standing. Molei rachamim sholchein b'miromim hamsei menucha nechona al kanfei hashechina b'mahalos kedoshim uteorim kizohar akiyah Meirim umasirim L'nishmas Shisha Milyonei Achenu V'nei Yisrael Anoshim Nashim Yiladim V'yilados Shenehergu Shenishchatu Shenisrifu Shenechniku, שנטבעו ושנקברו חיים בידי הנאצים ועוזריהם יימח שמם ומסרו נפשם על קדושת השם בעבור שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור החיים es nishmoseyen began Eden tehei menuchasam Adonai hu nachalosam v'yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavam v'nomar Amen. This time, please head to your next period. Thank you again to Dr. And Mr. Schanzer and to the entire student activities team for the program this morning. We'll see you later on today.